Welcome to Beyond the Beat, your go-to source for insider knowledge on fantasy football. Hosted by Zach Hyduke and Matt Olson. We bring you straight to the action with exclusive interviews from NFL beat writers, draft experts, and film gurus. Get the news from the field, straight from the sources at training camp and beyond. This is where fantasy wins are made.
Welcome in, everybody, to Beyond the Beat from 32 Beat Writers. My name is Zach Hyduke, and today I'm bringing you the top 5 most important things to know from the Beat Writers this week. I'll also be taking your mailbag questions, so thanks to those of you who submitted those on Twitter. Make sure to be following us. If you are just listening on the podcast and don't know us over on Twitter, you can find us at 32 Beat Writers or at 32beatwriters.com. And make sure to watch out for those notifications for when I put that out there so you can hear your name and question on the show. All right, let's just go ahead and get started here, guys. Got a lot to get to. We're obviously not going to hit all the news that there is this week. We're going to try to get kind of what I thought was some of the most interesting things this week. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and dive right into it.
You're better.
Yes. Where you want me?
You're good, right there.
Okay.
Where's Bruce?
Bits from the Beat.
All right, so you guys know this segment is just where I take a couple of things that I find interesting here. You might be able to find a lot of them on our website, as I mentioned earlier. Matt Olson posted an article earlier today, I think it was, previewing week 8 with some beat writer information. So make sure to go ahead and check that out. Some of this stuff is pulled directly from there. And here's the first takeaway for me. Whoever is the number 2 wide receiver for the Jags this week, or receiver just in general, could have a bigger fantasy game than we might be expecting in some capacity. And for me, I think that is going to be tight end Evan Ingram. According to Dylan Appleman of Big Cat Country, Evan Ingram, the Packers have given up some big games to the higher volume tight ends they faced in 2024, and Ingram has always been Trevor's safety blanket against good secondaries. I think we could see double-digit targets for the veteran tight end. And then his colleague over there, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country as well, said that Christian Kirk might be the biggest X factor on Sunday for Jacksonville's offense. Green Bay's defense has given up the 8th fewest explosive plays over the past 4 games, and they rank 11th in pass defense. Jair Alexander will likely spend, the cornerback, of course, for the Packers, most of his week's matchup shadowing Brian Thomas Jr. So, in my opinion, this isn't great news for the Jacksonville wide receivers, particularly with Brian Thomas. After Tank Dell, of course, last week against them was held to 0 catches on 4 targets, and Stephon Diggs, although he caught 5 balls on 7 targets, was held to 23 yards. So definitely interesting and important information there. I do want to also just highlight what was said a little bit earlier, that, Evan Ingram could be a factor here. And I think a big one. The Packers are currently giving up 10 fantasy points a week to the tight end spot, which is good for a top 10 matchup. So, insofar as half point PPR is concerned. But they're only giving up 24.8 points to the wide receiver position, which is ranked 21. So it's a fairly tough matchup. So I think seeing, kind of what the beat reporters down in Jacksonville are thinking, as well as kind of what we're seeing in the stats, I think that this could be a big week for Evan Ingram. So if you have any questions about him, make sure to go ahead and play him. Number 2, Dalvin Cook playing for the Cowboys. It's not going to matter. I want you guys to just make sure you're not getting name checked with this or ascribing too much to the name value. And that's kind of why I'm bringing it up. Maybe you guys don't care anyways, and it doesn't really matter. You're all like, okay, why are you bringing up Dalvin Cook? I haven't cared about him in 2 years. And if you're in that crowd, then I guess I'm not speaking to you. But head coach Mike McCarthy was asked this week if running back Dalvin Cook would be activated for the game against San Francisco. And he said this: Dalvin is ready. I really like the work he is putting in. He also said that he's in position to play. So it looks like we should expect to see him this week. It does look like he's playing. San Francisco is kind of middle of the pack against the running back position. However, the last time that we saw Dalvin Cook on the field, he averaged 3.19 yards per carry and only had more than 9 attempts in a single game. And that was week 1 last year on the Jets, of course, while Breece Hall was still out. This is nothing but a depth move for a bad Cowboys rush attack as it is. Cook is not here to save the day, so I'd expect more of the same from what we've already seen, which is that, they have had no more than 109 total rushing yards in a single game this year. And Rico Dowdle, who's the leader, of course, of the backfield, averages 41 yards a game. And the longest rush for any Cowboys player at all this year, 13 yards. I think that's held by CeeDee Lamb. Not a single rush attempt over 15. So I don't think anything's going to change there. I'd go ahead and basically ignore that and probably not play any of them. All right. If we weren't gross enough, let's get even grosser. The Cleveland Browns might, I say might, be relevant this week. The Browns play the Ravens. All right. They're starting Jameis Winston. And typically, if I told you, hey, your fantasy player is going up the Ravens defense against the Ravens defense, you'd be like, oh, so that's not going to be great, right? Well, in this case, I think that might be incorrect. Every team has scored at least 23 points against the Ravens, except for the Bills in week 4, where they scored 10 points, if you were watching that game. I'm not saying it won't be wild. I'm not saying it'll be like a good game if you're a Browns fan or a Browns win. I'm just saying that you can definitely start, for instance, like David Njoku with confidence. Probably play Nick Chubb, even though he was like 2 yards a carry last week. And maybe start Jerry Jeudy or even Jameis Winston in a pinch here. So that's kind of I was actually going to pull a little bit more here just to convince you guys to potentially consider starting your players against the Ravens here, just in general. They're third against the quarterback take all these numbers and flip them. So they give up the third most points to the quarterback position, the Ravens do. They give up the second most points to the wide receiver, and they give up the 7th most points to the tight end. Now, of course, against the running back, currently they're ranked 21. So that Nick Chubb suggestion, I mean, maybe that is or isn't a good idea. But definitely David Njoku I'd feel good about, and maybe you already did there. But if you're really, really struggling out there, you might be able to grab and throw Jerry Jeudy. There you go. Yes, DG, you are 100% correct on that. Bad pass defense, which is just kind of weird. I don't know. It just feels weird to me. So if you didn't know that, you do now. Also, Deontay Johnson might get traded. There's nothing really official about this. So I want to be clear. I haven't seen a report, especially from many of the big guys, that like, hey, so-and-so's getting traded. But there's just some weirdness around what's going on right now. The head coach was asked, Dave Canales was asked about it, him being held out of this game this week with a rib injury. It's the same injury that he had last week. And I was actually at that game. I got to see him get absolutely hammered on the field by the Washington Commanders. But he had that same rib injury last week, right? So it was kind of weird. The reporters asked about it, and he said this, that the decision on holding out Deontay Johnson is related or is a conversation for Dan Morgan and Brant. Wow, I can't even pronounce that name, so I'm just going to avoid it. The point is that he referred it up the chain. That's what I was trying to get at here. And so it's just weird that if a coach was going to be asked about a player that definitely wasn't being traded, he would say, oh, no, he's our guy. We're keeping him around. We need him for, to help develop our young quarterback that we said we were going to play again. And obviously he is playing due to the fact that Andy Dalton's out this week from that car crash. But I just find it interesting. I was I don't know. We'll get to that a little bit further. So I apologize for some of the runaround there. But for what it's worth, Deontay Johnson is on the last year of his deal and is an unrestricted free agent after this year. So if whoever in theory would trade for him, it has to be a team that's either contending or plans on re-signing him, or of course, both, perhaps in that case. Bryce Young, then, in this case, will be throwing to Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette, and David Moore against the top 5 defense in the Broncos. So, yeah, I think this is going to be pretty ugly. And, yeah, I'm going to be watching this one on Game Pass or, your DVR if that's your preferred method. But I will not be watching this live. Next question here on Bit from the Beat is, will DeAndre Hopkins actually be able to provide the answers that the Chiefs need? Nate Taylor of The Athletic wrote earlier that when the Titans faced man coverage, which was far less often than zone, DeAndre Hopkins showed his polished route running ability to create an easy throwing target, even when he didn't create sizable separation against a cornerback. Remember that. Stick that in your brain. We're going to get back to it. Such skills should elevate the Chiefs' passing production inside the red zone. When the Chiefs have been in the red zone, they have faced plenty of man coverage. The issue is that too often Mahomes' receivers haven't been able to create separation or make contested catches. Again, that from Nate Taylor of The Athletic. I want to highlight something here. I'm on playerprofiler.com, again, one of our partners here. Thank you to them. And I am looking at DeAndre Hopkins' numbers and routes against man coverage, right? So his routes versus man, he has 43 of them versus 55 against zone. He's got a 20% win rate versus man coverage, which is good for number 99 out of all qualifying. I think that's receivers, probably, I would assume tight ends as well. But he has a 52% success rate, win rate versus zone. His target rate versus man is 20%, and it's 21.8% versus zone. So those numbers actually aren't incredibly different. His target separation, this is just funny. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at here, but 1.25 versus man, not a lot of separation, which is what Nate Taylor was referring to there. 3 yards versus zone, though. And then the fantasy points. So I talked about all those numbers. At the end of the day, they kind of almost don't matter. Against zone, they are a little bit higher, but 1.77 versus man on a fantasy point per target and 1.90 versus zone. So the point is DeAndre Hopkins may not be getting a ton of separation all the time, and especially if you're in those goal line situations, he's not going to probably be getting a ton of separation, but he has those big hands, and we may actually see him be a little bit productive there. But I'm a little bit curious to see how tight some of those windows might be and just how much Mahomes is going to have to trust a guy who's only been there for a little bit. He's used to spreading the ball around a lot. Even this year, Travis Kelce has only been so reliable. There's nobody else on that team that is down to down. I know I can go to this guy every single time. And Hopkins, I don't know. We'll have to see if he's that guy. The Raiders, who they play this week, the Chiefs, that is, interestingly enough, do not give up a lot of points to the quarterback. And they also don't give up a lot of points to the wide receiver position. They do give up a lot of points to the running back. So this week, maybe a week that you don't start Hopkins or Mahomes, which sounds crazy against the Raiders, but the last time the Raiders played Mahomes, he was not super great. Almost a year ago in week 12, he had his last top 10 performance, which was quarterback 8 since then. And then I think that means you basically play Kareem Hunt, and maybe that's kind of it, right? So the only caveat to this is that the Raiders have played the Chargers, Ravens, basically the only good team, Panthers, Browns, Broncos, Steelers, and a busted up Rams offense. So the numbers with the Raiders and fantasy points given up, do take that with a grain of salt. So although Andy Dalton did put up 300 yards against them, so for whatever that's worth. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here, and we will be right back to take your mailbag questions.
Oh, every week I'm answering these start-sit questions on Sunday morning. I go to the weekly rankings on playerprofiler.com just to make sure that my instincts are correct, and sometimes they're not. And guess what? More often than not, I go with the projections. You may not feel great about starting Daniel Jones or Wan'Dale Robinson, but the projections say, hey, that's the move. It may not feel right, but you use those projections to get it right. That's the power of the Player Profiler system. It's Evan Ringler, it's Bradley Stalder, it's Theo Greminger, of course, it's Billy Muzio making these rankings possible. The season rankings, so you know who to pick up, who to trade for. The dynasty rankings are part of this. The offensive line rankings from Dan Fornick, one of the best in the business. Then we get our cornerback rankings, which show which corners are matched up with which wide receivers. And now, in collaboration with the IDP show, we have IDP rankings. Did you know that? Did you? So go to playerprofiler.com, use promo code PODFATHER. Get you 25% off the player rankings package right now at playerprofiler.com. Enjoy!
All right, thanks to Player Profiler for sponsoring the episode here today. Okay, let's go ahead and just get into some of your mailbag questions. I put out a tweet earlier. If you didn't get them in, I am sorry that that is the case. But if you are watching, you do have a chance to go ahead and put them in the comments at the moment. All right, I'll take the first one from the stream here since it's up. Conscious Machine asks, I'm deciding on Sutton, Watson, or Otten for my second flex spot, full PPR. Any thoughts? I do have Love and Dobbs are in the lineup. Christian Watson, I assume then, if you're referencing Dobbs. Oh, I don't know, man. Yeah. Otten, Sutton, I don't know. I probably go with Sutton there. That's my gut reaction, but I suggest go ahead and check those Player Profiler rankings later on Sunday, or the rankings, frankly, on our website. If you'd like, Matt's going to be putting those out probably Sunday morning. So I'd go ahead and check those as well. I know that's not super helpful in the moment, but it'll be more helpful then. Let's go ahead and move into the ones from Twitter here. Dream trade destination for Deontay. Thank you to Millie Chaser Podcast for the question here. Dream trade destinations for Deontay Johnson. If this is from a fantasy standpoint, all right, you guys know, I mean, I get it. You're going to probably just say I'm a Patriots homer. I honestly think it's probably the Patriots. Like, if you think about places that need a wide receiver who can fill somewhat of a wide receiver one spot and also may have a decent offense and a pretty good quarterback. I know he's a rookie here, but like if you could say, hey, I'll take away the two other wide receivers, pick any of the three in Chicago, and all of those targets from Caleb Williams get funneled to one guy. I mean, you're gonna love that. You're gonna pee your pants in excitement, right? I think that we need to consider Drake May more towards that category here. He's, as Phil Perry on our show the other day mentioned, he is in the company of Dan Marino, the first person to throw for over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games that he started his career. I think we should take that seriously. I think it's kind of being slept on because the Patriots in general are just trash. But if I'm not talking the Patriots homer take, I would probably, this is gross, but maybe the Chargers. Lad McConkey, I really, really like. And he's for a rookie, I don't think he's been a disappointment. But I do think that they could use some more help. Quentin Johnson certainly isn't it. And I think they were rumored a bit to maybe even be in the Mike Williams trade market, ironically enough. So I don't know how much I trust the offensive coordinator there. But again, Deontay Johnson's the type of guy that demands a lot of targets. Him and Ladd are not the same, but they take a similar kind of path towards fantasy relevance, though. So maybe not that. But those are just 2 off the dome there, Millie Chaser. Let's take Justin Tech here. What do we do with Jordan Mason in Dynasty? Well, I see a couple people already answered you as well, but yeah, I think I probably would have tried to trade him a little bit earlier. Now, I think the answer is trade him to the Christian McCaffrey owner. If you are the Christian McCaffrey owner, then you keep him. And I think you kind of just try to take whatever you can get. Now, what I will say is in your favor is he's not coming back for until at least week 10. So that's 2 excuse me there. That's at least 2 weeks. Although I think they do have a bye there. So I should be checking the schedule as I'm answering this question. But there's no guarantee that Christian McCaffrey is definitely going to be back week 10. The question, when asked and answered, I believe with the head coach in regards to him coming back, said that it's like not a hopeful or like the best shot to play is week 10. They didn't say like he will. And of course I would hedge as well if I was the one answering that question. But the point is like there's no definite timeline. And it will have taken 10 weeks for Christian McCaffrey to heal. So I don't know if he's being helpful to you in Dynasty. Maybe you do just keep him if you didn't trade him already and nobody's willing to give you anything for him because they're like, well, Christian McCaffrey's going to be back. Look, chances of Christian McCaffrey being hurt again at some point, not entirely low because he's a running back just in general. He's had injury history in the past, although he's been healthy recently up until this year. So I don't know, maybe take your chances. If I can get a second, though, I'm trading immediately. Cody asks, is Dak a 25 mid-first, a 25 mid-second, and a 26 second enough for Josh Jacobs and Hurts? I'm going to assume that you're trading Josh Jacobs and Jalen Hurts. Single quarterback dynasty league here. Dak 25 first and second at 26 second. So if I'm giving away Hurts, yeah, I mean, I don't hate either side of that trade. If I'm a rebuilder, I would be fine with the first. If I'm a contender, I will take Josh Jacobs and Hurts. Do you think T. Higgins plays this Saturday? I am really, really nervous. The answer to me is even if he does, I'm not sure how confident you can be in starting him, which is a weird situation to be in. So do I think he plays? Obviously, the answer is I don't actually know. Let me see here if I can find. All right. The report, I believe, came out just today, and it's going to be a quad injury, right? And they are playing. Who are they playing? I should know this. I apologize to those of you who are on the live right here. They're playing the Eagles. Yeah. Okay. I think if I have another option, I throw that guy in my lineup. Maybe if your commissioner has the sleeper feature enabled for auto sub in case of injury, I'd be utilizing that. If they aren't, you should talk to them about that. It's kind of a cool little feature sleeper rolled out recently. So I'd be really nervous. I don't like a guy showing up on the report this early or late in the week. So I'd take a look at that, obviously on Sunday, but I'd kind of shy away if I had the possibility. What do the Minnesota Vikings do at left tackle? I don't really know. Christian Darrisaw, a very big, important piece of that offense. I think Quessenberry came in for them at the end of that game. I don't know that there's a whole lot out there on the market. I'm not a tackle expert, so I'm going to be careful in my answer on that there, Cody. But I will say that I do think that this may impact Sam Darnold. We've seen Sam Darnold be very, very good against little pressure. You give him time, he gets the ball where it needs to go. But when he gets heated up a little bit, I think we might start to see some cracks. So something to look out for the Vikings. Richard asks, Odunze or Debo this week? Debo, right? Yeah, I mean, monitor the injury status there with the pneumonia. I think he was good to go though, from everything that we were seeing. Debo is going to be a monster without his counterpart on the field, Brandon Ayuk. So that's where I would go. Who would you rather have the rest of the season, Chase Brown or Deontay Johnson PPR? Well, it depends on where on the heck Deontay Johnson goes. So, yeah, I don't know if I could answer that question for you, but I think if he stayed where he's at, I would prefer Deontay Johnson. Extra Crispy asks, does Cousins light up the Bucks again, or is Purdy a better start with his weapons out / hurt? So Cousins against the Bucks or Purdy. I probably, I don't like any of this at all, but I'd probably go Cousins, I guess. The Bucks, the only question there is if the Bucks are going to be able to put up enough points to matter. So yeah, I don't like that at all here. Let me check one thing before I answer that fully. And no, go Purdy. Go Purdy. Based on what I'm seeing here, it's gross, but maybe just hope for a couple touchdowns. He's been better on the year, and they have a better offense, and frankly, they have in some ways, better matchup for the fantasy situation as opposed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They play the Dallas Cowboys, who don't have a lot of their defensive players right now. People's champ. Are the Chargers really going to waste a prime age Justin Herbert season by not acquiring a sorely needed veteran wide receiver? Well, we already talked about Deontay Johnson. Don't have anything solid on that possibility. But we are hearing about Greg Roman's offense in terms of satisfaction with the performance, or what are we? I'll hang up and listen. I thank you for asking the question, People's Chance. I mean, who are you asking when you're curious about whether or not we have a lot of happiness with Greg Roman's offense? If you're asking the Ravens, well, they kicked him out. So there's somebody that is, one or the other. I don't know. I haven't heard too much from the head coach there, at least that I've been able to notice. There's not always a ton coming out of the Chargers area of the country a lot of the times, but I think it'll take a couple more weeks to see some cracks, if we do start to see some cracks, for what it's worth. Okay, is there any chatter out there on getting a trade done to get Sutton out of Denver? Not that I've seen. I mean, he's by far their leading wide receiver in terms of usage and targets and all of that. So they would have to be willing to sacrifice, in my opinion, some of Bo Nix's comfort and ability to have a wide receiver on the field who's worth anything. That's not to say all the other wide receivers aren't worth anything, but he's the one that we know is like somewhat reasonably good. And as much as they are transitioning towards younger wide receivers and other players on the team, I don't see why they do that if they're not also willing to get rid of somebody like Javonte Williams, although he probably doesn't have a big trade market. But, I figured they would just be starting other people if that was the case. And they didn't do that with Javonte Williams. So for what it's worth. Sharon is Karen. Will I ever make my dad proud? Well, your profile on X has the hot dog guy meme. So I'm going to say, I don't know, questionable. The Kobe, RIP Kobe, says, who would you rather have the rest of the season? Oh, I already answered that. Sorry. Is there any chatter out there on Deontay? Already answered that. When does Pacheco return? Here we go. Since Hunt is playing so well, why would the Chiefs not take their time with Pacheco and not rush him back? I think you've already answered your own question. I don't know. I know that we saw him around and in the locker room. So I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think there's been anything out there that said, hey, this is when we can expect Pacheco back. But it was a relatively serious injury that he suffered. And so keep a lookout for that. I'm going to refer you over to our kind of loose partner-ish, Dr. Tom Christ at Fantasy Injury Team. Check his Twitter feed tomorrow. He'll probably post a thread if he hasn't already with all of those types of injuries. He's normally pretty good at that. And he doesn't do the typical Twitter doctor thing of, assuming that he knows absolutely everything and can predict absolutely everything. But he does a really interesting job in saying, like, okay, what injury does this player have? And how many fantasy points do we see in general on a loss on that? So I'll take one or two more here in the chat if you got it. All right. What's your best DFS play at wide receiver and running back? I'll answer it this way. I am not good at DFS. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I'm not a sweat like the rest of y'all out there, but I'll have to get Max on the show at some point. Maybe he's kind of our DFS guy on the team. I just couldn't do that too much. So as far as my best DFS play, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you out too much there. I'm more of a dynasty guy long term, but it is what it is, right? Flex 2, Warren, Chubb, McMillan, Tillman. Ooh, all right. I'll I'll go with Chubb and McMillan. That's what I'd do. Who did I just mention as the injury analyst? That is Dr. Tom Christ, and that's at Fantasy Injury Team. Fantasy Injury Team. All right. That's who you want. I'll put it right there up front for you to see. And last question here. How about Keaton Mitchell? Any chance he gets to play with King Henry around? That is from Twin Lakes. I don't know. I think the thing with Derrick Henry is he's a first and second down guy, right? So anybody who can play a third down role, like Justice Hill, is going to have an opportunity there. I kind of was a Rasheen Ali guy, but obviously I don't think he's going to take every single snap. So, but Keaton Mitchell is never a high volume guy anyways. And I don't know that he's a guy coming off of injury that while King Henry, that is running so well, I don't think he's the type of guy that demands any sort of, run necessarily. So I would say unless something drastic were to happen, I wouldn't expect a whole lot. But, hey, you're asking about good DFS plays. I don't know. Maybe in a good matchup, you get him super, super cheap and see what happens. He's obviously very explosive type of guy. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get going, guys. It is pretty late. We've gone a little bit longer than normal, but I appreciate you all for joining me. Don't forget to check out our website at 32beatwriters.com. Use that code podcast for 50% off your first month. We're going to be revamping that in the next couple of months here. I don't want to put a hard deadline on that, but we got a new dev on it, and he's going to be really, really great to help us out over there. We're going to be bringing you a lot of new stuff. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it, and I will see you all later.
Thanks for tuning into Beyond the Beat with Zach Hyduke and Matt Olson. For more expert analysis and exclusive insights from the best in the game, don't forget to subscribe and stay ahead of the competition. Until next time, keep turning that insider knowledge into fantasy football wins.